Hello and welcome to our first Zoom session meetup for the Sharing Information Together. And this is a new service that Hope Services is offering to try to reach out to community members, family members, and persons who are supporters of individuals with a range of disabilities. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what Hope Services is, and then I'll go ahead and introduce a little bit more about who I am and my co-presenter, Pam Kissendile. So Hope Services, as it says on the slide, is a vocational service provider, and we help people with all different types of disabilities as they have a goal of getting employed. Some of the different services that we can offer are vocational evaluations. We can do some discussion about what are some incentives for work, because sometimes people have a question, if I work, what's going to happen to my Social Security, SSI. We also have, in addition to the voc evals, mental health counseling, which we found is very helpful for folks that may be a little bit nervous about getting out into the workplace. We offer a vibrant on-the-job training program and employment services with job coaches as well. For the young people who are in transition, we also offer PREETs, which is the pre-employment transition services, which include work readiness training, which is a 20-hour course, and community-based experiences as well, and a bit of self-supported employment as well. We also reach out to employers to try to help them to realize the benefits of hiring a person who happens to have a disability. So we talked a little bit about the Veterans Opportunity Work opportunities, that there are tax credits available to businesses who hire persons with disabilities, that there's also a credit for small businesses under the Americans with Disabilities Act, and there's also a federal bonding program. So please join us on our website and follow us on Facebook and Instagram to find out a little bit more. And I'm going to go ahead and have Julie go to the next slide. So my name is Emily Taylor Snell, and I am the resource specialist at Hope Services. And one of the new jobs that we were asked to do is to kind of put together this opportunity to share information. We're going to start out with Zoom, and then later, as things progress, we'll look at offering an on-site face-to-face opportunity as well. So it will occur at this point every month, the second Wednesday of the month, from 12:30 until 2. And the format we're kind of looking at is about an hour or so presentation. And then we want to hear from you all, because you all have great resources to share as well, that you can kind of update folks on some things that you found useful. My background is in education. For many years, I was a project coordinator for a federal grant for deaf blindness. And I have also been a teacher for students with special needs and an instructional systems specialist. And I've taught some classes at the college level as well. So I'm going to introduce you to my guest speaker, Pam Kissendile, who comes to us from a project that I have worked on previously for deaf blindness. And she is the family engagement coordinator there. And she also is a life coach, amongst many other things as well. So Pam, if you can kind of introduce yourself a little bit more and tell us a little bit about some of the hats and the lenses that you bring to our conversation today.
Oh, thank you, Emily, for inviting me. First of all, I'm really happy to be here with all of you. I, as Emily said, I work for the Florida and Virgin Islands Deafblind Collaborative here at the University of Florida, and we're a federally funded grant serving individuals birth to 22 who have both vision and hearing loss across the state of Florida and the Virgin Islands. Along with my work, I'm a life coach, and I represented several advisory committees, local, state, and international opportunities that I've had the opportunity to learn and grow with. I think that I bring mostly to this conversation experience, life experience, my experience with my child with special needs, but also I think I have had the opportunity to see all of the things that we do in a very unique perspective, which is from a family's point of view, a parent point of view, as an advocate point of view, and a professional point of view. And believe it or not, it looks very differently in each area, depends on where you're sitting. So I guess I will share lots of my experiences with you today.
Well, that's what I really look forward, Pam, because I think that you do bring multiple hats and multiple perspectives, and you can kind of speak to family members as well as to professionals who are also supporting persons who have disabilities. And I just kind of wanted to add as well, I kind of gave you my professional background, Vita, but I also, through my work on the same project that Pam is on now, the Florida and Virgin Islands Deafblind Collaborative, I met my daughter. And when I first met her, she was about 15 years of age. And then she came to stay with us when she was around 17. And so she has low vision, and she's deaf, hard of hearing, and uses sign language to communicate. So I kind of bring that professional point of view, as well as helping her to navigate transition and through adulthood. She's now 35. So I will be sharing some of her story in what we're talking about today as well. And my husband, brother, also has disabilities. And when we were in California, he lived with us for about 10 years. And so we just helped him to kind of navigate things so that he has now lives independently, owns his own condo, drives, and all those things. So again, I think both of us kind of come with that professional hat as well as a lens of both family members. So go ahead, Julie, and turn to the next slide. So what we're going to do is we're just really going to have a dialogue. We're going to have a kind of a chat, but I gave us a little bit of some visuals to kind of help us to take a look at some of the concept that we're talking about. So on this slide, it really is just showing in a very cyclical, and can go both ways, how when we talk about transition as being lifelong, that it's not something that we are thinking about that's just kind of age 14 to 22. But I think that this navigating lifelong transitions is something that all of us do at different points of our lives. And I'll just use myself as an example. From when I lived in California, then I transitioned and moved to Ohio. And from Ohio, I moved here to Florida. And I've just celebrated my 1-year anniversary of retirement from one job, and now, going into transitioning into a new position, a new opportunity. So I think that's something that we want to really think about as we're talking with our families, that it's not a point in time, it's not a destination, it's something that's really ongoing. So Pam, can you kind of, on this slide, we talk about words like change and modify, transition, transform, shifting and adjusting and all. Can you kind of give us an idea of how we can think about change? I know we talked about this before.
The mute button. Now I will involve our audience here for a little bit to talk about, to experience change for a minute before I share my thoughts on change, if that's okay, Emily. So I will invite you guys, if you don't mind, to unmute your phone, your microphone for a bit, and we'll do a quick activity. So when you are unmuted, I will start. And it's kind of, we can do this with a large group or a small group, but it's nice that, we can all get involved. So I want you guys to put your hands out like this for a little bit. And then put your hands back together, clasp your hand, and notice which thumb is on top. And take note. And then I want you to put your hands out again. And now this time, bring it back together. Clasp it again and notice which thumb is on top. Same one, everybody? Yes? Okay. All right, let's put our hands out again. And this time when we clasp our hands, we'll deliberately put the opposite thumb on top. And I want you to note how that feels and just share out a little bit about how does that feel to you. Emily?
It feels a little awkward. I have to kind of think about it. In fact, when I put my hands together, I had to consciously think about crossing the opposite direction. And when I first did it, I actually intertwined my fingers a little bit differently. And that really felt odd, having my right hand with my little pinky out. So it's just a little uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable, yes. How about you, Sandy?
To me, this didn't feel normal.
It didn't feel
it's
normal.
such a habit to go the other way, and so to sit here and hold it that way too, I'm just like, yeah, it's not working for me.
Want to go right back to where it was, right?
I do.
How about you, Cindy?
You know what? I'm left-handed, and it was interesting when you said to do that. My right thumb is on top, not my left. And I would have thought my left thumb would be on top. But then when I tried, like you said, I had to consciously think about putting my hands together and moving the left thumb to the top.
Oh, yes. And how about you, Danielle?
Yeah, it felt almost numb, like when you get an injection at the dentist and your lip is numb, you know what I mean? So feeling that other thumb was like, this isn't my thumb, what's going on?
Yeah, true. And Julie, do you like to share?
Yeah, same thing. It was just like, and then had to think about it when you said consciously put the other one on it. And I'm like, nah, this is like putting, your shoes on the opposite foot kind of thing.
Yeah,
Weird.
absolutely. Taira?
To me, it felt like my hands went upside down.
So this is and I appreciate
the wrong way.
The wrong way, yes. That is so interesting. It is good that you guys can be involved in this activity and share, and I appreciate that you're sharing. And I do this demonstration often in sessions that I do to demonstrate that change is uncomfortable. It's very constant in our lives, but we have to change with change because we tend to develop habits. And when we get comfortable in habits and we have to break those habits, it's difficult. So the process of becoming aware that we need to become comfortable, being uncomfortable is how I best describe change in my life, because every time something comes up and I realize I'm like, okay, this is what I have right now. This is what it is. How do I need to move to the next step, or what do I need to be able to move to the next step? I have to realize I need to change because I'm questioning myself mostly when I'm already in a habit of doing something that is routine. So I hope that helps give you kind of an image of change, and you remember, and when you get into a change situation, to know that it's just getting a little bit uncomfortable, and eventually you'll figure it out.
Thanks, Pam. I think that's so true. And I think that we just really need to acknowledge up front before we even start getting into change or to a transition. I'm gonna feel a little out of it for a while, but it's okay, and it's actually normal to do so. And I was just thinking about some of the comments that people made about, I can't wait to get out of this, or I want to, go back to where that comfort zone is. And I think that sometimes that's really true with whatever we're going to be doing, whether we're talking about some of these different transitions, or we're looking at some different things we need to modify. And even though this was something very small, it still made us feel very uncomfortable. So I think that's something that we need to take into mind whenever we're going to be looking at, as we're supporting or helping families to support their shift and their movement forward, that it might be easier just to modify something that's very small, because what we might think is very small, for them, it may feel very large, and it just may take extra time and concentration. So that really those small steps, but as long as they're beginning to make those steps, then it's okay to feel uncomfortable about it. The other that I'm kind of thinking a little bit about is, it's okay sometimes to say, okay, I'm going to get out of my comfort zone, but sometimes I need to kind of come back to it to be ready to take on something else that's new. So you're not always just going straight forward. So Pam, I know that we're talking a little bit about with this change, it's not only what activities or what things we're going to change or what concrete things, but sometimes it's a mental mindset that you have to get into, because I think that each of us were saying, well, I had to concentrate on this. You had to really get ready to do something. how do you kind of help people to work through that shift in that mindset?
You know, I think it's really very different for everyone, and it depends on where you are, your experiences with the supports you have, and your flexibility on accommodating and adapting to change as a whole. I think, you know, when we speak of transition is something that is ongoing. It's never ending. I mean, we transition many times in a day, within an hour, a week, a month, within a year. And COVID has taken us into a whole new transition phase, into a Zoom world and all of these things. So I think, you know, Emily, so, you know, what takes you into that shift? And I think, you know, the next point on the slide, it's that transformation of, you know, what do we do next? How do we shift from transition to transformation? I think transition will always be there, but how do you transform who you are in the process to be able to become ready for the next steps to make that shift? And in my mind, the way it works for me is that I feel like sometimes and Emily, you have worked with me many years, and we've done many things together to know that in conversations even that we've had, that you know, we can be in a conference or a session like this and we feel motivated by what someone says, but motivation can be a story that you want to share. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are wanting to make a change. But when you're in a situation, sometimes there's just that aha moment and just clicks, and you're suddenly inspired to do something different because someone was able to share a message that you were able to connect with, and it helps you to move forward. So taking that action. So I think, you know, the transition moves into transformation, and then that mindset of shifting of what do I want, and really where do I want to go as a next step.
I agree. And it reminds me of something we've talked about in the past, that hearing something one time oftentimes is not enough to get you to move. You have to maybe hear it multiple times and maybe from multiple people. And then it has to get comfortable enough for you to say, okay, I'm ready to jump for that and to do it. And I think that sometimes what holds us back, one is just, it's like jumping off a ledge, and it's that unknown. And it kind of creates that fear piece of, am I going to do the right thing, or am I doing the wrong thing? And I think that we have to give ourselves and the families that we work with the time to just kind of sit there and get it saturated. So I think we have to just take a look at not getting frustrated with folks when say, "Oh, I've already talked about this. I've talked about once or twice or whatever." It may take multiple times because they're just not quite ready to make that shift, and that's okay. The one thing that I do take a look at, though, is when that fear is holding us back because we don't want to do the wrong thing. I guess what I look at is, you can only do the best you can with what you know at the time. Once I know something different, then I can make choices to differently. But if we can just say, I'm going to do and enact something, even though it's a small step, it's okay if it's not right, because I can step back and reevaluate that later on. But if I can just get past some of that, that initial fear that if I do this one thing, everything is going to blow up. You mentioned to me a story that you relayed, Pam, about your conversation with your son, Alec, when he was having some problems with math. Can you kind of share that little story with us?
Sure. So Alec was in high school, and I had made it a point to drive my children to school every day so I can have quality time with them. And so Alec, he's high school, drive him every day, and I pick him up every day, and that was our time. So he was forced to talk to me. And one day he was feeling really down, like, oh my gosh, I have a C in math. I'm never gonna get to college. My life is ruined. You know, that moment of despair. And so I was listening to him, and I said, you know what, Alec? You know, you're so young. Why don't you just take next year and just do math? You can do anything math, everything math. You can just do one subject. You're young. You don't have, you know, to rush through life with all of the things that you're thinking about right now. And he go, oh my God, what kind of mother are you? My friends' mothers would be very upset at this conversation. And I just laughed because I didn't see the worry or the stresses as he was seeing it from his point of view, but it was only the only conversation we needed to have for him to get into reality of like, wait, if I don't do this, then there's all of these things which I really don't want to do. So maybe I should focus without telling him to do what I think was the right path to be on. So we often laugh at that story. I tell Alec all the time, and I don't know if he ever actually listens to it, but it is true that change and shifts and where we are and the mindset that we have in that certain time can look very different from our shoes until we're able to get different perspective and be willing to hear them with an open mind and not feel like we're being judged. I think that is something that really helps us to make that shift as well.
I agree. And I think that just really takes us to having to adjust where we are and where our folks who we're supporting. That, part of it is going to be on our shoulders to take the lead on maybe finding some different supports that we can help to gather and maybe, put in place on behalf of our young person. And when I say young person, it could be any age as we're going through this transition, but it's also helping them to be comfortable with the shifts that are going to be happening in their lives. So it's where you have them making steps, and then we're also making steps as we might be finding different resources and all that can be helpful. I guess the other part that it just kind of makes me think about it as well, especially when we look at adjusting, and just in terms of say a job. Sometimes we're just so anxious for a person to find employment that it's like, okay, we're done. We got that job, and it's in place, and we're at kind of a stopping point. And it just makes me think about another young man who we worked with named Devin, that when he was in getting out of high school, his counselors all asked him, well, what do you think you might want to do? And what are your interests? So he expressed that he had an interest in working with animals, and he liked animals really well. So I said, oh, that's great, because we have a position that we can help to slide you into with the SPCA, working with animals shelter. So as this first job for that first year or two, that was really great, because he got out of home, he wasn't going to school, he was doing the different tasks, which at that point was feeding, watering, taking them for walks, and cleaning up after them. But into 3 to 4 to 5 years, it got to be monotonous, and he felt that, well, when I said I was interested in animals, I wanted maybe something else, whether it was going to lead to a more of a career toward grooming or maybe in a vet assistant. But the folks who were supporting him were like, well, you got a job, what more do you kind of need? So for him, what was good for the first couple of years became boring after that, and it's like he needed more. So right now he's in the process of stepping back and kind of readjusting and trying to help people to envision what else I be able to do. When he was in high school, he was interested in music, so he's looked at, well, can I use some of that to maybe work with people in senior facilities? So just because we get to one plateau of, okay, we got that job, it doesn't mean that that's where the person needs to be forever. So I think we always have to help to reevaluate and make sure they're satisfied, that they're enriched, and that things are going on. Can you go ahead, Julie, and turn to our next slide for us? So I think what we've been talking about are just a wide array of emotions that we might be going through. And on this slide, talking about might be feeling, lost, confused, unsure, perplexed. Just, I think that what we're saying is there is discomfort in anything that we're going to do. And so, Pam, do you have any experience with any of those feelings as you were moving the transition with your kids?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I look at this chart every time, and I try to decipher these feelings in the moment of going through any process with my children. And I feel like even with my puppy, who is my child, I feel like most of the time when it was that heavily focused on transition or huge change, I felt all of these feelings at the same time. You know, the best way I can describe it is just absolute overwhelmment. It's overwhelmed and to the almost debilitating, because you know, what is next? Where do I go? Who do I speak with? Who will understand me? You know, where am I coming from? And in that process, you know, we talk about all of the change and adjustments and transitions and all of that in the first slide. And one of the things that comes to mind that always takes me through this process is a quote that I heard a long time ago from Dr. Joe Dispenza. And he said, we need to be able to change our personality before we're able to change our personal reality. Otherwise, we'll keep doing the same things over and over and expect to have something different. And I reflect on that often. And as a matter of fact, in this overwhelming feeling with the transition, it was about the same time my daughter was finishing up high school. And I was at home with 2 young adults, and I am working with the same schedule. And one of the things that was going on in the news over and over in the beginning of the pandemic is about, you know, stock and investment and all the changes that were happening in real life. And all I could think about in that moment is, okay, what we have to do right now, right here, is that is a fact. We're here, right now. But I remember how much of in the processes and parts of our life that I have made an investment in my children, and that investment created a team. So I was able to cash in, and we worked as a team to move forward. So, you know, I think when these feelings come up, it's just thinking about acknowledging it's right here, right now. You have to accept it. You have to embrace it. You have to you know, move along with it. Otherwise, you will get stuck. So, you know, it's a very interesting place to be, but it's always a delight to be able to move away from it and, you know, celebrate with ice cream or something.
It does feel better after you get past some of it, that's for sure. And I know exactly what you mean by just kind of feeling overwhelmed, because I have like, you know, a dozen balls that you feel like you're juggling all at one time, and it just doesn't work. I'm just not that good of a juggler. So I have to remember that, you know, I can't eat this whole pie at one big gulp. I have to cut it and take, you know, bite-sized pieces that I can kind of manage and kind of chew on before I go on to the next part. And I think that's kind of how I try to move through when I get just like everything is bombarding me. And I tend to be a list maker. And what I found that has really helped me when I get to some of these you know, roadblock kind of things, is if I can just begin to make a to-do list, but not a really broad to-do list like find help. That's just too broad, because I feel like I'm never getting rid of that one. So I try to make very discrete action steps that I can successfully check off, so that at the end of the day, I can see what I have accomplished. So that if I can feel that I have been a little successful, then I have motivated myself to go on to maybe the next part. So I just really find that if, in fact, what I'll do is I'll put on the website as a handout after this. A few years back, we partnered with a group out of New York, the Deafblind Project there, on a interagency transition initiative. And it was a really helpful kind of a guidepost. It's kind of a linear line. And then according to each of those lines, you had different age ranges. So by this age range, I might want to have connected with Voc Rehab, or might want to have done just a self-inventory on where I am as the parent, as the things that I tend to still do for my young adult, not because she can't do it, but because I'm just used to doing it, and maybe some things that I want, you know, that I'm looking at are skills that she has. So I can kind of gauge, okay, this is where we are now. This is where we need to kind of be. So I try to do just very discrete steps so that I can feel successful in checking some things off. And I found that to help to move me out of that overwhelmed fear kind of piece. But if I make my steps too big, then I feel like I never get anything off my list. I think the other thing that I've learned is everything always takes longer than you think it's going to be. So I no longer put on that list as this is, this is what I'm going to try to get done all in today, because invariably I might put 10 things on that list. It's like they're all the things that need to get done, but I'm really going to get through maybe 2 or 3 of them. And I need to be like, hey, I got through 2 or 3 as opposed to, oh, I didn't get through the other 8. So really try to bite-size things, I think, to help out. But if you can get some different tools that help you to have kind of that kind of listing of, oh, okay, yeah, we're already there, we've done that, and it just kind of helps us to look at some of those next steps. I'm going to ask our audience, how do you kind of move through getting to the next steps for you? And do you have any strategies that tend to work for you? I'm just going to pause for a moment and see if anybody wants to add anything. Just be sure to unmute.
Mine is kind of scripture. Anytime our family or any business or somebody I'm coaching is going through big changes, there's that scripture that talks about that God will be a light for our path or a lamp for our path. But the part that means for me and what I take away from that is, if you think about a lamp back in history, it wasn't like a flashlight or headlights like we're used to today, where it lights up everything in front of you, right? A lamp only lit up like the first, like the 3 feet around you. Picture walking around with a candle in your house. You can't see everything. But if you can see just what's right in front of you, and you can trust and take that one next step, and that one next step is lit up. So trust God and take the next right step, and that's kind of what gets me through stuff.
That's a great analogy, Daniel. It's really helpful. Sandy?
Too, it's good to be okay with the gift of time. I think, sometimes, especially with these big decisions, we're so quick to feel that we need to make a decision quickly without, gifting yourself the time to do research, gifting your time to talk with somebody, connect with somebody in the direction that you wish to go, get their feedback. What are you really getting into? Do I really 100% know that this is a job that I want, or this is an avenue that I wish to pursue? And I just think, even coaching some of our high school kids, they're so quick. They feel like, with these video games, make a decision, you go, make a decision, you go, make a decision, you go. But as you get older, it's okay to take that gift of time and really, do the pros and cons. And because these are bigger decisions, it's not, do I run up the hill or do I shoot the monster? It's bigger than that. And it's okay to allow yourself the time to get the information you truly need to make a good decision. Absolutely.
I think that's so important, especially as we work with families and when we're trying to convey it with, I think about just even with my daughter, it's okay. Give yourself permission so you don't feel guilty about what all of the things you didn't get done or what you haven't done yet. It's okay to take that step back and just, consider it, as long as it doesn't just keep you frozen. So it's kind of a balance that you kind of have to do. But I think it's important to allow people not to have guilt, because I think that people can really carry a lot of that as well. Yeah, I'm going to move on a little bit more. Julie, can you go ahead to the next slide? So we've been talking about just a lot of kind of where we are feelings wise and thought wise and the whole process of change and transition. So what we just kind of did here is to kind of put into just a quick way of kind of thinking about things, kind of thinking about where I am right now. And I think what I've heard from folks is asking for help, taking a look around and see what are the resources, and connecting with people who can help us to do that. And just taking, as Daniel was saying, just that one little step in front of you, not trying to make that big leap ahead. And to give yourself permission, it's okay to change your mind. If it didn't work, just reevaluate and reassess. You just might need to make a shift and not a whole change and really celebrate those small successes along the way. I think sometimes we get so bogged into the big stuff that we don't look at, wow, this was a really big, this was actually monumental because it did take me from where I am right now. Pam, let me ask you, I know that some people, in fact, I'm teaching a class right now, a work readiness class, to a group of students at a Pepin Academy. And one of the things that I'm working through with them right now is it's okay to ask for help. They sometimes, feel that, it's embarrassing, or it's, it makes them feel not as smart if I have to ask for help. So I think that's one big thing if we can help to get across. Pam, how do you approach that concept of asking for help? And who do you kind of look to get help?
I'm totally understanding the point of view of your students, because asking for help, it's difficult when you haven't practiced it or know that people will be willing to help. It's something that I feel like I'm constantly working on. I have developed really good relationships with many people who I think understands me at different levels, from spiritually to my beliefs and my own strength from within. And these are friends that are, far and wide, and it depends on the particular topic. I have, a particular individual that I can reach out to, but I feel like you have to be very strategic when you're asking for help, because it depends on who you're speaking with and how they may interpret what that is. I think you have to give yourself permission to know it is okay, build confidence in asking for help. I've heard Darren Hardy say one time that it is not a lion on the other end of the line. Just pick up the phone and just make that phone call. You're not going to be bitten, or ate because of it. So, I think of that sometimes, that asking, I think about the skills that comes with asking for help is building confidence, is giving you an opportunity to practice, giving support, taking, we give a lot. And sometimes it's good to be able to have somebody feel what it feels like on the other side, to be able to give to you, not necessarily take, but giving that benefit to someone else as well. And I think the advantage of being able to ask for help or put yourself in a place where you're able to voice what it is you're thinking, you're able to voice what it is that you're needing. And sometimes the person you're speaking with are able to clarify some of those things that sometimes get stuck in our heads as we're asking for help, and not know how to really express that clearly, especially for young adults. It's one of those things that they have a picture, maybe even a final picture in their heads, but the steps to get there is what is difficult. So starting that conversation, and Emily, you are one of the genius when it comes to breaking things down into little bits of pieces and saying, okay, Pam, where do you start? Let's start at right here, right now. It's one of those things that, and I'm thinking about your students are so privileged to have you, and so fortunate to have that teacher with a skill set that will provide that to them. So I think, just go ahead, take chances, make mistakes, and get messy. That's what Miss Frizzle said on the Magic School Bus.
There you go, on the Magic School Bus, huh? Well, it just takes me to thinking about a recent incident with my daughter. She, right now, thank goodness that with COVID, she was able to come back home, so she's not living on her own, but she lived on her own for many years down in South Florida, and then she moved to Alabama for a couple of years, and then she came back home. So I think she's kind of wrestling with this, I'm adult woman, but I'm also home, and I'm, a daughter, and just kind of this whole amount of independence and all. I can show that I can do it all. So I think in this mindset of wanting to be the adult and making all these decisions, she ended up with a situation that she was really unfamiliar with. So I think she kind of just froze, and she didn't want to, she was trying to, she explained later on, so I was trying to be independent, But then she really got in over her head, created a bigger problem that now we're working through step by step. And it was just so much stress, and she just was really depressed, and she just, and once we kind of broke it down, I said, well, it's a lesson learned. You know, now you understand about this because you had to go through this unfortunate situation, and it's an expensive, unfortunate situation as well. But just in the process of us now coming together and making a plan, she hugged me the other day and said, thank you so much. She said, I was feeling so stupid. And she says, but it was really more stupid not asking for the help. But it's something that she had to process through, that being an adult doesn't mean you don't ask for help. And, being independent doesn't mean you don't ask for help. And I think that for many of us who are in the helping profession, sometimes it's even harder for us to ask for help. So I think it's something that if we can really try to extend to our young adults, that's really helpful. Pam, we were talking a little bit about, like, you happen to have a situation where you happen to have siblings, that let's not overlook the help that you can get from siblings. You want to talk a little bit to that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I think siblings definitely need to be recognized. I have made an effort to start from a very early age to take my son out for lunch. Even if it was peanut butter and jelly sandwich and sitting in a car on a cold winter day. We're from Canada, where it was difficult to find just those moments when I had to be very strategic in planning care for my daughter to be able to do this. But it was one of the things that I had learned from participating in a support group, where a mom had shared that if you make an appointment with your child, you're making an appointment, treat it like you're making an appointment with a professional who you have to pay for that service. And if you don't show up, you have to pay. And there is a price to it when you don't invest in the quality time with siblings. And I took that to heart because I think that it was important for me to build a relationship with my son. And giving that opportunity for my children to develop a relationship that, among siblings, that was just way more than what meets the eye, but it was genuine, and they both felt like they were equally valuable and important, and their needs were met within our family. So I think siblings definitely build stronger relationships when they are treated with the respect that and they deserve, because they're able to build those skills to carry over to their siblings.
And I think too, it's a balance of making sure that sibling is felt that they're heard and all.
Absolutely.
But I also think that it's really helpful to be able to maybe share some opportunities for those siblings to have time with other siblings, or to be able to air feelings that maybe they didn't even know that they had. And I think of two situations, and I'm thinking just as adults. My husband accompanied me one year to a learning disabilities conference, and there happened to be a session where it was on siblings and just sharing what you're, whether you were the oldest or the middle or the youngest child, that there's certain traits and all commonalities, but just being able to share and talk openly without a feeling of judgment, but with other people who also understood, where there was a balance of, yeah, I may have wanted to help, but sometimes I resented it. Am I a bad person because I feel I wanted to that I resented, having to spend the extra time or do something, or to feel, do I have the, all the weight of the responsibility that now if, say my parents are gone, that I have to take on that whole responsibility that my sibling is not going to live there, I'm going to do everything. And it was really interesting to hear my husband voice some things that I never would have thought that he had about just his relationship with his brother. So I think there's just a lot of different things. So there are adult organizations as well as for the sib shops for the young people. So I think those are all valuable pieces as well. What I want to kind of take a look at, we have here Explore Resources, and we were talking about who do you ask for help. And so I want to kind of move on to our next part of, we've kind of talked about all the emotional kind of pieces, some strategies on how to move forward and not get stuck. to give yourself a little bit of permission. But I want to also kind of hit, as we're talking about this lifelong transition, where are some places that people can kind of go? So what Pam and I did was to kind of put together, I guess, a start list. Julie, can you go ahead and change to the next slide for me, please? So we talked here a little bit about one process that can be very helpful is something that's called person-centered planning, where it's not us making all the decisions off of our best thoughts, but there's a group opportunity where we can gather information from a variety of different people on what works for the person, what doesn't work for the person. They get a chance to voice for themselves, really looking at from a skills perspective, what do they already know, what are their interests, and it helps us to have a jumping off point so we even know what kind of services that we want to take a look at. So we will be sharing and putting in a little bit about some of the different processes. The whole idea is a person-centered planning where you might have the use of some surveys or inventories to kind of see where I am and where I might need to go next, because there might be things, oh, I never thought about that. Yeah, they really can, do their own laundry. Oh, they really can make a doctor's appointment. Oh, they really can arrange for transportation. But it's just something that I have typically done, so I've continued to do it. So there are a variety of different types, whether there are personal futures planning, something called MAP, something called STAR. So there's many different formats that can be used. And it's just going to take time whenever you are transitioning from one system to another to just learn it, because there's acronyms, there's just all kinds of things that go on that you just have to get comfortable with as you're moving out of the education system into the adult services. And in education, things were already kind of set up for you. There was, here's the IEP, these are things that we brought out. Once you move into adult services, it's really where you're sometimes on your own a bit. So go ahead and move to the next slide for us, Julie. So what we've done here, and this is by no means exhaustive, and we're just going to highlight more for the purposes of the recording for other people who may be listening to this, especially family members, because I know for most of you who may be professionals in this, you're aware of a lot of these resources. But what we did was take a look at some of these are age specific that end with, because it's an educational piece, at age 22 or 26. Others are lifelong. They may even start at younger ages, but go all the way through adulthood. So what Pam and I are going to do is just kind of highlight some of the different types of things that folks can benefit from. And since we happen to have someone from Fiddlers or the Florida Diagnostic and Learning Resource System, rather than me talking about it, which I was going to do, I will ask you, Sandy, I'm just giving you a heads up. Let you give a few minutes on that part. But what we're going to just do now, so we've kind of led you up to, okay, kind of, how do I, just kind of get myself mentally prepared for this whole ebb and flow roller coaster of transitions throughout life. And then here, just want to give you, here's some tools, some places you might want to start with. And so what we've done, and we placed on the website after this presentation, along with our PowerPoint as well, an annotated list of these. So it gives you a little bit of a snippet so that you can see, oh, okay, here's some of the stuff that they do. I might really be interested in connecting with that, as opposed to just giving you a link. So Pam, I'm going to ask you to start talking a little bit about what's the Family Network on Disabilities.
Okay. So I obviously don't work for the Family Network on Disability, but we work collaboratively with them. So what I'm sharing with you is just a few things that I know of them in the process of working with them. They are a PTI. Each state has a PTI, Parent Information Center, and FND has several locations, and each location has a different representation name-wise. One is called PEN, there's Pop-In, Family Star, PEN. They also have Advocates, Advisory Council, they have Special Needs Trust. They have a broad array of services that they provide. Most importantly, they provide services to families helping to advocate and educate them on the processes of IEPs and schools and all IDEA, everything. The FND website is rich. It has loads of webinars. They offer Facebook Live things. They have their website I find very intriguing because you can like just translate or have your information in 4 different languages. And they have done a demonstration of how easy it is to access the different languages on their website. Very interesting. They're easy to reach, easy to work with, very friendly, parent friendly, and I will highly recommend reaching out to them for any services as a collaboration or for individual supports. They also serve individuals who are, lifelong in this process.
Thanks, Pam. And Sandy, I'm gonna push you on that you can share with us a little about what Fiddlers does in age ranges.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So we are the largest discretionary project for the Department of Education here in Florida. And we are primarily known for identifying child find with our littles, our 3 to 5-year-olds. But many people don't realize that we're so much more than that. We have a group of folks that do a ton of training, and really Fiddlers provides a lot of training statewide through online learning. We do face-to-face. Right now it's a little sketchy depending on the comfort level, and districts will allow us to go in. We're not allowed to pull out during the school day right now.
Thank you.
We also have a group that does assistive and instructional technology, which is half of me, and the other half of me is parent services. And I supply parents when they have a need for connection with agencies, give them the information, and even before the age of 3, I work with families, and I even work with adults with disabilities if they reach out and say, I need help with this is my need. I get them connected with an agency, a person, what have you, to help them overcome that. So we are very fortunate that we have the power of statewide. So if I don't know the area, if one of my families is moving up North Florida, then I can already connect them with whomever it is that they need to connect with up there. I'm going to cover, because I know that there's quite a few of us in here working right now. That way you can hear me and not them. So we provide a ton of resources. We do a lot of training. I'm doing a lot more parent trainings this year. So we cover a wide range of services, and many times when there are meetings, you'll see myself connected with someone else. I do a lot with VR, so usually there's the 2 of us. If we do a parent night, there's usually me, VR, APD. We're all right. If you invite one, you tend to invite the crew. So there's usually about 5 of us that come. So which is really nice, because whomever you need, we're right there and available. So if somebody didn't get invited, we invite them for you.
What age range do you serve, Sandy?
To identify the littles, that's 3 to 5. I personally, I just say I go birth to death. Because if a family needs help, if an adult with disability needs help, I'm not going to tell anybody no.
Excellent.
But really,
Well, we'll be reaching out to you in
K-12.
Well, great. Well, we will definitely be reaching out to you for maybe being a guest speaker with a few other folks on a future Zoom sharing information, because I think that I think you're right. I think a lot of people think that you just do the assessments and the child find kind of piece, and are really surprised with the wealth of information that you can share. So thank you.
Love to. Thank you so much, Emily.
Absolutely. So Pam, you're going to tell us a little bit about CARD, Center for Autism and Related Disabilities.
Yes, so Center for Autism and Related Disability, CARD, they have 7 locations across the state of Florida. And CARD support individuals who have related disabilities as well. So from our program, for example, for our individuals who are deafblind and may have some need of some support that CARD can provide, then they will help to provide those supported related disabilities. They provide services such as training, technical assistance. They work with families directly. They work with the community. They work with schools and school districts. Each card has a board of directors, and they're very, very good at supporting families for their card conferences. Right now, they're doing loads of webinars and classes of all kinds. If you look at each of the card website, for us, it's the card at University of Florida, Gainesville. They have literacy trainings, sexuality, employment. They have boot camps, all kinds of services, again, to both families and schools and educators. So again, a lifelong age group, so it goes on, which is really helpful. One of the things that I have used very often at CARD, and I really appreciate, and I know Fiddlers used to have it, so I don't know if you still have this, Sandy, is a visual lab where you're able to make visual support things, and it's truly helpful for the community, for the educators, and for parents. Is one of the biggest asset, I think, that I have found to be helpful. Does Fiddler still have their working lab?
Each center does it differently. So some still have the lab, some do not. So you would just need to reach out to one of your parent team members and ask to see if they do. What we often do, since we don't in Gulf Coast, we make the creations for families. So if they say, I need an if-then chart, if I need a visual schedule, we create it for them. So to help out, so that way we don't have nothing. But for some centers, the make and takes are not open.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Andy.
And Pam, can you say a couple of things about when the CARD conference is going to be? I know it's going to be virtual.
Oh, the CARD, yes, the CARD conference, they have a conference annually, and it's usually in Orlando, the Florida Mall Hotel. However, this year CARD conference will be virtual, and it will be in January this year. And I wrote the dates down, and I can't find it right now. I know I think it's January 24th. I'll find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if you just go to Center for Autism and Related Disability, you will find the CARD registration and all the details for them, their locations and everything. Right. But the CARD conference, yes, they do have a conference annually, usually in January.
In January, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we will have that added to our website as well. What we're creating under the same heading on the resources is that helping people just to know what are some of the conferences and community events. So any of you who work for agencies and organizations, and if you have an event that might be helpful to families, please let us know and we can advertise it and put it there, so that just trying to kind of create a space. I know that, Sandy and I have shared back and forth that we're going to, kind of share what kind of things are upcoming and happening. But just there's so many things that are just rich that if we can kind of share them across platforms, that would be great. So I want to tell you just a little bit about the Lighthouses for the Blind. If you have a person who has vision loss, whether it is lifelong or whether it's onset later in life, there are 16 different lighthouses around the state, and they provide a range of services from comprehensive rehab programs to helping people to become independent in their homes, taking a look at assistive tech devices. If they are already on a job and say their vision is shifting and changing, they can come out and do an evaluation and see how that person might be able to have some modifications made, which allow them to stay employed. They do have earlier services. They have blind babies and early intervention services. And then they have a children's program from age 6 to 13. There are teen transition programs. The way that it is run, it varies from lighthouse to lighthouse, but I just can't say enough about the one that my daughter went through here in Tampa. It really gave her, her career, actually, because they had work experience during that summertime. And one of the things that she was able to be placed was at Publix in the bakery area. And she found out that she had a gift and a talent for it. So she later on went to the Art Institute, got her certification, and she's been working in Publix for the past 12 years. So now she's in a point of transition, see what she wants to do next. But they work closely with Voc Rehab, and if a person has both a vision and a hearing loss, they can have a dual enrollment in both VR and DBS. And say if the person is going to go for extended training and education, DBS can handle some of the supports related to the vision loss. VR will split those services for the things that might be on the hearing loss or other areas. So Pam, how about sharing a little bit about the Centers for Independent Living? You're on mute.
Do you want me to do Center for Independent Living or Family Cafe first?
Um,
I was looking at the list.
oh, okay. I didn't have Family Cafe up here, but you may do Family Cafe. If you
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm looking at the other list. So Family Cafe, it's a statewide disability conference that is offered every year. Usually for the last 22 years, it was in June, and this year, for the first time, it will be held in May. But if you go to familycafe.org, you can get loads of information on that. They offer opportunities for networking, for learning about resources, self-advocacy. They have a youth council. At the conference, there are thousands of attendees and hundreds of breakout sessions. Lots of opportunities for families to connect, not just with families, but with statewide related services and resources. But one of my friends described it as one of those places where you learn how to see and plan to land the helicopter. So, you're not that helicopter parent all the time. And then she says, if it's possible. So if you can get a chance, and if you're not yet aware of Family Cafe, it's definitely a resource that you want to connect with and access.
Yeah, so I add on a little bit to that as well. I think one of the beautiful things about Family Cafe, it's actually an event, but then if you go online, they have so many more services that are offered. They have a wonderful podcast series that is just really awesome. And the two guys that facilitate that have a really good rapport, but just a lot of information. And then there is the young adult leadership piece as well, that for up to age 30, and I think teens to 30, that they help young people across disability areas to really begin to know more about self-advocacy, and then for advocating for others, and then just really building leadership skills. So it's just really, so check them out. They have quite a lot of things other than just the cafe. And I think the part that's really interesting there is there is something literally for everyone. Age range wise, adults, and just walking through the vendor area is just an eye-opening event, especially for, I think they do really well on things that are fun, recreation things that you might not have thought about that would be available. So do check that out. So Pam, do you want me, or do you want to go ahead and do Centers for Independent Living? It's up to you.
You can go ahead.
Okay. Centers for Independent Living, there's 16 of those. They each have their own name. So you just kind of want to take a look at where in the state that you may be. Two that we're going to highlight on a website will be one out of the Tampa area called Self-Reliance, and then another that serves Pasco and Pinellas, which is the Disability Achievement Center. But as the name implies, Center for Independent Living, the goal is really to help people to equip themselves to be as independent as possible, and to know where to go for help for a variety of different things. So it is a cross disability agency, again, one of those age-long ones that's real helpful. They do information and referral services, so even if you don't know where you need to go for stuff, they oftentimes can help place you in the right direction for state and local and national resources. They do have the independent living skills piece. They do things on travel as well. They can help people connect with whether there is a mobility service within the area, or whether you're going to be getting bus passes and making sure you know how to use the public transportation and all. And now that you have the lifts and all of those as well. Another that some of the groups have are peer mentoring, which is really helpful, because then you have a person who's kind of done the walk and done the talk, and now they're sharing their experiences and expertise to help another person along the way. And I think that's just so invaluable. And then there's also where they may do some direct coaching and the help for people to learn more self-advocacy or advocate skills within the broader section as well. But it's really all toward independence, really helpful that way. So Pam, are you comfortable doing project 10? You're on mute.
The famous slide. I can do just a quick, maybe you can add to this, but for me personally, I have found project 10 to be absolutely resourceful for the most up-to-date information. As a matter of fact, every time I see project 10 staff member do a presentation, I admire them for the vast amount of statistics and knowledge of statewide policy things that they have in their heads. So they cover things what's called graduation, graduation requirements, state standards, post-secondary employment, independent living. They have opportunities for webinars. They work closely with many of the CEC or Florida related transitional services for conferences. They do a lot of stuff, and they're very friendly, easy to work with, and willing to answer questions. Will participate in IEPs sometimes, or answer individual questions, or work collaboratively with both, and try to help families to navigate what that transition process might look like if they have additional questions that they don't feel that they're getting information from the school, that clear information from the school. They're not working separate, but it's together as a team. I absolutely enjoy working with Project 10 staff, and highly recommend that you look at their website and see all of the resources they have available.
Yeah.
They're also statewide.
And much like what Sandy was talking about being a discretionary grant, Project 10, and the 10 comes from Transition Education Network, that they work primarily with school districts, but they also work with families as well, and to facilitate those relationships. And their main goal is to make sure that services are provided in a timely manner, and to help improve outcomes for folks as they're getting ready to transition out of schools onto adult life. But they actually have a lot of different products. And one of the ones we talked a little bit about, person-centered planning, they have theirs that they do is called STAR. So it's also a process that really can help you to take a look at with a group, including the young person, to kind of just evaluate and hear what other people happen to say about what might be some areas that might be abused, but really taking a look at collecting information in a very positive manner. So they're really looking into that whole transition legislation and policy as well, and student development and outcomes. So as you say, I think they're just really an awesome group to
very knowledgeable, extremely knowledgeable.
Then I know that Pam and I will go probably back and forth a little bit on the voc rehab and Division of Blind Services. Do you want to do voc rehab, or you want me to do that and I'll do blind services? Or
I can probably do voc rehab better. I can't see, I know we created a list, and I don't have access to that list, unfortunately, because my computer is being crazy at the moment. And I'm going to go from my experience as a parent who has accessed vocational rehabilitation services. There's statewide, it provides services for individuals. I think there is a change in the law starting soon, or already started, that the transition process starts at 12 years old. So families are encouraged to reach out to VR earlier to make those connections. And the VR has a lot of resources and services. It takes some work and efforts to navigate those services, though, because I think there are changes from the state and within their community and within their regions, and somewhat sometimes it's difficult to navigate it. So if you are trying to navigate VR, services. From my perspective, just be patient because it can be quite tricky. They offer classes, which I really appreciate, and for individuals who are exiting school, for like how to write a resume, how to apply for a job, and on all of these soft skills to help the students be more prepared, and amongst many other things. But Emily, you can probably add to that.
Yeah, and I'll just kind of say the Hope Services, we are vendors for VR, so some of those same type of things that VR may offer, other services will help you to walk through them as well. But yes, it's focused on for VR. It's for people who have physical or mental or cognitive disabilities. The Division of Blind Services obviously is for persons who have some type of vision loss. But the goal is to really focus toward work and working through the life spectrum. And it also deal with assistive technology devices, can do work assessments, medical and psychological assessments, so a wide variety of services. On the blind side, if folks are interested in getting guide dogs, they help with that, linking up with different blind organizations, statewide as well as national. So it's, and then the technology and things for being able to independent living as well, because if you can't get up in the morning because you don't have an alarm that you can, touch or feel, like my daughter uses a vibrating alarm. You can't be very independent, so you can't get to work on time and maintain. So they have quite a lot of different services, and it is by the state. So Pam, if you can touch briefly on the Agency for Persons with Disabilities.
And the Agencies for Persons with Disabilities is one of those agencies that I think give hope to families, because the opportunity or the hope, for long-term care for med-waiver services particularly. Many years ago, they had only 5 disabilities that were considered for their program, but right now I believe there are 8, and I don't know them all by heart, so I will not tell you what they are, but please, if APD website.
I can help you out with that part, Pam.
Okay, go ahead.
Folks who have impacted severely by autism, cerebral palsy, spina bifida, intellectual disabilities, Down syndrome, Prader-Willi, Phelan-McDermid syndrome, and then also for children ages 3 through 5 that may not have a identified diagnosis, but who are at high risk for developmental disability.
There's a long waiting list. So if you're applying for med-waiver services or going through APD, again, it's one of those ones that be patient and work your way through it.
And I don't know if y'all heard, but they received a whole bunch of money. So they were able to add hundreds now to move from the waiting list to services. Yeah, so they're really excited. There's a lot of good stuff that they've got going on right now.
Yes.
Great. And then the last one, I'm just going to touch on a little bit, disability rights. It's a nonprofit organization, and it really helps with the legal advocacy and rights and protections for both adults and children with disabilities. And we have used them as we have had some challenges with some of the work situations, and they've been very helpful. So they can do a lot with disputes involving Medicaid eligibility. They can help with issues around housing. If there's architectural barriers, helping to make things accessible for folks, service animals. Also, if there are violations with like abuse or neglect or human rights, they do that. They'd also help if there is an issue of maybe discrimination within the workplace. They assist with that piece. What I also like, and it's something that we've been talking about a bit, especially I guess with the past elections that have come across, they'll do a lot with voting registration and making sure that there is accessibility for persons with disabilities if they need that, and then just supported decision making as well. But when you go to their website, they have a lot of webinars and a lot of resources that you sometimes just really wouldn't think about. It would be there, but very helpful. So that annotated type of group bibliography of organizations where people might want to just start, that will be on our website along with with this. So let me ask me.
Can I just add one thing really quickly?
Absolutely.
Through Agency for Persons with Disabilities, and also disability rights are right up there with the family support, is Family Care Council. So if you are a parent listening to this and you have not heard about your local Family Care Council, please check that out, because it's important to get involved, and so that you can make connections with families and also be a voice in advocacy, or just learning and helping to change policies for the betterment of our children.
So we have us a few minutes left. Hopefully you found this helpful, but I also want to see, as we're kind of looking at some resources for lifelong transitions, do you have any others that kind of really come to mind that you want to share at any of our participants? Any others? Daniel?
Through the programs we run really help people with entrepreneurship and getting new businesses started. And sometimes that's a viable option. So we have a microloan that helps people. We have education and classes that help people get their business started. As an example, we helped a woman who was blind start a Braille menu printing business a couple of years ago. So we have
Awesome.
resources. We're not, so my organization, the Pasco DC, we're not specifically, I mean, we help everyone. So, but there's definitely resources. And so every time we're talking about, like, don't forget to ask for help. And, we are, I mean, there was a gentleman that we just did a testimonial video for us. He was diagnosed with ADHD and autism and speech impediment. And he was told he would never graduate high school, but now he actually has a company with 7 employees that work for him. And so he went through our program, but we don't hold ourselves out as specifically supporting those with unique abilities, but we definitely can. So.
Well, Daniel, we may be reaching out to you also as we're looking future of our Zoom sessions and all, because I think that sometimes, the kind of the Fab 8 or Fab 9 that are more commonly known that get shared because they are out there, they're free and all, but it's wonderful to get a chance to know a little bit more. So I look forward to learning more about what you do and how we can get it out there. Well, I'm not going to keep you. We have about 3 minutes left. Anybody else have anything else that they might want to share, either an organization, agency, or tips or anything that you found helpful? Sandy?
One of the groups that usually comes with me when we're doing parent nights is also public transportation. And I can tell you Pasco's public transportation has really evolved into something really incredible. And they've also partnered with Hillsborough County. So now there is a bus line from Wesley Chapel all the way down to USF. So for some of our friends that are nervous about taking public transportation to go that far, but want to go to school, take a class, it's a direct line. And they offer so many unique trainings to help people if they don't know how to do the colors, if they don't know how to plan their route. They have somebody that will do that with them, help them transition to other buses. So they've been really amping up their supports that they can do. And I know during the summer, since some of the kids may be going to different classes, that they offer like summer passes for a very minimal charge. So we like to have them come to when there's like I said, the group of 5 of us, that's usually one of the ones that I grab, because there's a lot that they can do for our learners to help them build independence as they transition through. And so I think that's a great group.
Well, we'll definitely talk to you about that, because I think that as we'll talk about in other situations, especially when we talk about more independent living and all, transportation is oftentimes the #1 challenge. I won't call it a barrier right now, but I'll say a challenge for sure. Well, thank you all for joining us for our inaugural Zoom session of sharing information together. And I just wanted to let you know that our next session will be on November the 10th. And we're pleased to have Karen Schwartz to present in a timely manner. It's going to be supporting mental health during the holidays. That I think is going to be a real powerful session. So please share this out. We will have the kinks ironed out with our registration so that we will have more people who I know wanted to be on this session that maybe were not able to do so. But thank you very much, and hope to see you on future sharing information together Zoom sessions.
Do you know when
Thank
that
you.
flyer will come out, Emily, by any chance?
We'll probably the flyer out probably by next week.
Perfect. I think giving more time too, because then I find if I do a refresher message that I get a lot more hits on that. And
Absolutely.
I noticed on your website, you do not have a Twitter account, correct?
Cindy, I think that we have Instagram, Facebook, and
Correct. We do not have a Twitter account currently.
right.
Okay.
So, all right. Well, thank you folks so very much. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of the day. And we look forward to seeing you on future sessions.
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you all so
Thank you,
much.
everyone. It was
All right,
great. Thank
thanks.
you.
Bye.
Thanks for
Bye-bye.
sharing. Good to
All
see you
right.
all.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.